my favorite part, is walking in.
Slide in.
Walking in thinking about what you're going to say.
Bro, how you doing?
Good, man. Welcome back to the Disformed Podcast.
With our new...
Look at our new snazzy setup.
A new setting. Look at this.
We thought we'd just throw in a nice fireplace.
Your office needed it.
No, just so everyone knows, this is not my office. This is the church cafe.
Yeah, it's a great cafe. You guys did a wonderful job remodeling this space. I mean, it's really impressive.
Thank you.
Who was the design lead on this?
My sister, actually.
Yeah?
You know, she did that for quite a while.
Right.
As a job. So we were blessed. Her and Josh Arguello. Josh is an architect and does a lot of design work as well.
Does, yeah.
So those two combined, it's kind of a blessing, man, to have them in the church.
What a mad scientist crew.
Yeah. And it's not done yet either. I mean, there's a lot of all the finishing touches.
Sure, yeah.
Like this will be wallpapered and certain things are going to happen. So
yeah, I've noticed that some accent things are happening every time I come.
Yep.
So that's awesome. So it's been a month.
Has it really?
It's been a month, yeah. So we recorded right before the election, the day before, and
oh, that's right.
you predicted that Trump was going to win, and he did win.
He did win.
And how are you feeling about that?
I mean, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Out of the two choices,
candidates,
I'm
right.
happy.
Yeah.
For sure. What about you?
Oh, man. I got to tell you, I'm pretty excited about some of the things coming. Some of the things I'm not so sure about. I mean, a few of his cabinet picks have been a little bit like, what exactly is that about?
Yeah.
But I think overall, in terms of him saying, hey, Hamas, you got to have all the hostages released by January 20th or, you know,
yeah,
you're going to have all heck to pay.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
No, that's an amazing thing. I think for the first time since 2014, it feels like, and I don't even know, maybe before that, I guess for the first time since Obama was elected, it feels like our country is and I could be wrong. It just feels like it's going back more Christian again.
Okay, tell me about what you see.
I just think that you're already seeing some of the woke secularist propaganda stuff going away.
Right, like the wind's not to their backs.
Yes.
Okay.
Where before it was just like full sail ahead.
Headstream, yeah.
And now it's like, oh, you've got people like celebrities and whatnot coming out being like, oh no, actually we want to live in a Christian country.
Right.
So it feels like, man, I didn't think I was going to see this. I thought it was just trending downwards for so long.
And you had an interesting experience happen at a restaurant, right? A few, maybe like a month ago or so, where you were at a Mexican, I think it was a Mexican restaurant with some other church people, and there's some other church people there.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, so there was a big church table behind us of another church, and there were three churches that I knew of.
Yeah.
Cabo seems to be the spot now on Sundays.
Okay.
I think that has
Shout out to Cabos.
Yeah, and I think what happened is the old, what was the big Mexican restaurant there on Utica?
Los Agaves?
Los Agaves. Used to be like the church spot.
Okay.
Sundays you'd go in there, it was church people everywhere.
Yeah.
Up their prices, service got kind of bad. And now I think Cabos is kind of taking over
Shout
that crap.
out to Los Agaves.
Yeah.
Pick it up.
And so anyway, there's a lot of church people in there on Sundays.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of dressed up in Sunday clothes.
Right. You can tell.
Yeah. And all of a sudden at lunch, someone started singing the doxology. And our table and a bunch of tables all started chiming in together, and the whole restaurant was singing the doxology.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I was like, man, that's just another observationally.
Right.
It seems like, man, is the country trending in the right direction right now, or does it just feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always the question, right? Is that if you listen to the media, it's always going to be trending in the wrong direction.
Yep.
Right? But if you have your finger on the pulse of different areas, you might see something that's more encouraging. So today there was, as of recording today, there was a big verdict in a trial in New York that just came out where the guy Penny was found not guilty for manslaughter of Neely. And so I'm not sure if you remember this, but like a year and a half ago or so, there was a person on a subway train who was threatening other people. And a former Marine subdued him with a chokehold, and he ended up dying in the incident.
I do remember that now that you said that, yes.
Yeah, so it was finalized today. He's not guilty of manslaughter. So, which chaos erupted outside the courthouse in New York. But It's an interesting trial. I wasn't sure if you had kept track of it.
I had not. Had you been keeping an eye on it?
Just, yeah, a little bit. I mean, one, I think the reason why was it felt somewhat reminiscent of George Floyd. The difference being is that it wasn't a police officer, but it was a civilian. And then two, Floyd was on the streets, but nobody seemed to feel threatened by them, where everyone on the subway felt threatened by Neely because he was saying things like, I don't care about going to jail and doing all this. And so everyone who took the stand who was on the subway that day did indicate that they felt threatened.
Yeah.
So, but then in the video footage of it shows people going, he held on to the chokehold for 51 seconds after Neely went limp. And people were like, you can let him go.
Yeah.
But the initial coroner said 100% he killed him. And then the expert medical person said, with everything in his system, that there is no clear evidence that the restraint is what killed him.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
I thought it's something to keep an eye on, see how that goes. But it was.
Yeah, I'm been oblivious to it. I remember that happening, but I have not watched it at all.
Yeah. So what have you been watching?
Oh man, it's so funny you asked that, because I was just thinking, what have I been paying attention to?
Yeah.
The bad part of the Reformed world is it's always chaos. There's always bickering and fighting back and forth because they seem.
Come on. Because they're the most holy Jesus people on the planet.
You know, that's the problem.
They agree about everything.
Yeah. They agree about the essentials, but man, when it comes to third tier issues, it's just chaos.
Okay. And you've been paying attention to that?
I have been.
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing some camps divide, and you know, I'm scared to bring up the topic because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, what topic are we bringing up?
We don't want to bring it up.
I won't go down there. You just bring it up, and then I'll just go, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah, so I know you are familiar. You're familiar with the Talmud?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And there's
the Babylonian or the Jerusalem?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, the Talmud is commentary on the Mishnah, which the Mishnah is the codification of the oral tradition from the Pharisees. So I can explain more of that. But essentially, when you see Orthodox, Jewish Orthodox people, ultra-Orthodox is what they're known as, and there's different camps within there, they primarily study the Talmud. And they actually spend very little time studying the biblical text. So anyway, so Talmud.
Yeah, so let me preface with saying, in any denomination, there tends to be two ways you can go that are both incorrect. We can call it left and right.
Sure, just the extremes. Yeah, right, yeah.
And it's no different in the Reformed camp. I mean, you have very liberal Reformed tradition. The PCA is very liberal at this point.
Right.
But you also have far right. And so watching some of this online argument, and you've basically got some guys that are dabbling in like revisionist history with World War II.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just saying, you know, like, which there's truth in this. This is what's interesting. There's truth in that growing up, you are really given like one side of the story, in the sense that Nazis are the worst people in the world.
Yeah.
Hitler's the greatest evil that there's ever been.
Right.
Everyone thought that growing up.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not even saying it's not true. I'm saying that you were very much fed that.
Right. Yeah. Because when we were growing up, America, and I think for any generation before us, it was definitely the United States is the hero.
Oh, yeah.
In every encounter. Yep. And then what happened as non-Americans started teaching in academia post-World War II, you saw an increasing amount of anti-American rhetoric happening at the university level. So that's been a swing, and now it's common in every country now to have revisionist history, or they call themselves the new historians and stuff like that, where they try to, usually they just try to create a counter narrative that.
And it's funny to me because maybe they're not intelligent. Seemingly intelligent people in the Reform camp.
Yeah.
There's a very popular podcast out right now, and I'm not going to say it because I want no one in my church listening to this podcast.
Great. Yeah.
But on this podcast, they have one episode that's called something, it's basically saying that everything that you know about World War II and about Nazi Germany is a lie. And what they do is they basically pull out every piece of evidence they can in defense
Of what?
of why Nazism came about, right? So they pull out, which, listen, it's not that all of it's false. Some of it's very true.
You gotta give me a taste.
Oh gosh, dude. I'm number one. I can't stand this stuff.
Okay.
I think it's
But
complete.
you're listening to it.
I absolutely wanted to hear the argument, so I
Yeah.
went and listened to the podcast, and I was like, whoever can sit here and listen to this and not understand that they're giving one side of this story
Right.
to repaint history, you're an idiot.
I mean, essentially, what you're saying is that you have Christians who are using Nazi propaganda.
No. What they're doing is they're going in and explaining what actually, like, how did Nazi Germany actually come to hate Jews so much? Because you're really not taught that in school. You know they do, but you're not taught why.
Well, there's only theories as to why Hitler directed his hatred towards the Jews with Mein Kampf, right? So,
Well, there's theories, but there's some pretty good evidence as to why. I mean, it's terribly evil and it's wrong,
yeah,
but I'm saying it's not. There's evidence out there, and this is what they're doing though. They're pulling all of that out,
yeah,
every piece about how the German people, basically their, exchange rate on their dollar, whatever that's called,
yeah.
was like they were poor, like
Right,
no
yeah,
money.
the economic problems after World War
Right.
I were,
And Hitler
horrendous.
uses this as propaganda,
Yeah,
twists it onto it's the Jews' fault.
Yes, yeah,
And literally, that's how he gets people to hate Jews.
right.
And what they do,
Which wasn't hard because Jews were already hated in Europe.
they've always been hated.
Yeah.
Right? So, but again, this podcast goes in, they look at every single piece of evidence that was happening to the German people. And by the end of it, you're like, oh, I feel bad for the German people. Of course they did this,
Are they
right?
suggesting that it was actually not morally reprehensible to kill 6 million Jews?
No, they wouldn't go that far. But what
Okay.
they are saying is that Talmud, and that's why I brought that up.
Yeah.
There's some very derogatory things about Jesus in the Talmud. It's very anti-Christ.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean,
and one of their pieces, and I'd be curious how you take it. They said of all the major world religions,
yeah,
Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, every one of them paints Jesus as a positive figure. Jews paint Jesus as they can't stand him. They're very anti-Jesus.
yeah.
And they said, why do we look at this as people that are, right, our people, when in
Yeah.
reality they're very much not our people?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think one thing that would be very important to distinguish between is the beliefs of the ultra-Orthodox and all Jewish people. Because not all Jewish people are ultra-Orthodox. So that would be important. And that, two, there's actually a name for instead of calling Jesus Yeshua, right, which would be how we would say his name in Hebrew, they call him Yeshu, which is an acronym for may his name be blotted out. And so
So there is an anti-Christ type.
the contempt for Jesus is very high within the ultra-Orthodox. Now, there's a plurality of reasons for that.
Well, I mean, that stems back to the beginning of the church, I would imagine, right? Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, it does. And so...
they feel like they're coming in hijacking their religion.
Right. But also you have to keep in mind, like, the amount of Christendom's persecution of Jewish people was pretty intense through the Dark Ages and medieval Europe. And so Rashi, who was arguably the most famous commentator for Judaism, wrote extensively apologetics to try to help Jewish people not convert to Christianity by threat of death. So that had a big impact.
Yeah.
But what's also interesting is that a lot of Rashi's writings and his interpretation of the Old Testament crept into the church. And the way that happened is that when the reformers wanted to go back to the original languages like Hebrew to study it, Hebrew manuscripts.
Yeah.
None of the reformers did, right? All they have is access to Latin.
Yep.
And so they have to go to the rabbis to get Hebrew manuscripts to study the Bible in the original Hebrew for the Old Testament. And when the rabbis go, here's the Hebrew text, they also go, if you want to understand it, you need to read this along with it. And what do they give all of the reformers?
Talmud?
Rashi.
Rashi.
Yeah. So when you see commentators today say Alma, which is the Hebrew word for virgin, isn't talking about an actual virgin in Isaiah, but rather referring to a young woman, where does that interpretation stem from? Stems from Rashi. There is no interpretation of Alma in Isaiah as a young woman instead of a virgin prior to Rashi.
Right.
So, yeah.
So anyway, yeah, these far-right Reformed camps
Yeah.
are basically like, hey, we need to stand up. We don't realize how much Jewish culture is trying to impact American culture. They hate us.
There's some strong anti-Semitism there.
That's what right.
Yeah.
And that's where, right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so then you
Yeah.
have another camp.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. Another camp who used to be considered far-right
Yeah.
is basically cutting them out and saying, you guys are anti-Semites,
Yeah.
way too far.
Right.
And you're talking about someone that is like one of the most far-right figures
Yeah.
in the Reform world.
Right.
So anyway, I'm like, why am I wasting my time with this stuff? But it's interesting to learn and read and
Yeah.
listen and try to have wisdom.
Yeah.
Because what does it actually have to do with my context and what I'm doing day to day as a pastor? Very little. But you asked me what I was watching, and
No,
I've
it's
been
fun. Yeah.
been following that.
All right. So a question I was thinking about for you, growing up, guilty pleasure movie that you like to watch.
Guilty, so that means it's not a good movie.
I mean, like good, and it doesn't have to be necessarily like bad, but like nobody would consider it a classic, but just like a movie that you liked to watch.
Oh, dude, I've always been the dumb comedies guy. Like I'm a
Yeah.
Dumb and Dumber.
Oh yeah.
I'm a Dumb and Dumber, Step Brothers. Like
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Like those are my
Yeah.
guilty pleasures. Yes.
Tommy Boy?
Yeah, not as much Tommy Boy. I wasn't a
Okay.
big Farley fan.
No.
No.
Didn't like the physical humor as much?
I don't know why. He just didn't make me laugh. Will Ferrell, I mean, I wish the guy wasn't such a woke
He is pretty
moron.
woke. Yeah.
But
He's just been in California a long time.
he is hysterical.
Yeah. He says some very off the wall, hilarious things.
Oh,
yeah.
hysterical.
Yeah.
I mean, Elf, what a classic Christmas movie, dude. I mean,
It's really good.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. Is that your favorite Christmas movie?
A modern day Christmas movie? For sure.
Yeah. So now, what about when you were like young?
When I was young, all I can remember is I was a huge Star Wars nerd. I was a
Were
huge
you really?
Indiana Jones nerd.
I had no idea.
Yep.
Harrison Ford for life.
Oh, yeah, dude.
My goodness.
Oh, yeah. 1,
I-
2, and 3 were just,
The tops.
I mean, I guess that's technically 4, 5, and 6, though, right?
Well, technically, but
Yeah.
yeah. I know what you
Gosh,
meant.
So good.
Yeah. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have Star Wars posters and action figures? And
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Lunchbox and
Oh, yeah.
wow.
All of it.
Huh.
Yep. Indiana Jones, huge.
Where did that side of you go?
What do you mean?
The sci-fi nerd part of you.
Yeah, I'm not nerdy. Like both of my good friends are both like Ryan Voss.
Yeah.
Huge dork. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't just watch Lord of the Rings. He
Thanks
like
for watching,
reads-
Ryan.
He reads all the books in depth.
Right.
It's
So he knows
really-
all the background
Yeah, and I'm
information.
like,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
into that.
Right.
I wish I was. I think it's really cool.
But he can just nerd out and go deep. Yeah.
I can't, dude. I'm so bad at novels. Do you read novels?
No.
Gosh, I want to.
I have read novels, but I don't go and pursue reading novels.
I think they're really good for preachers
Yeah, absolutely.
because
Yeah.
illustrations and getting just that kind of language.
Well, that was
the
Keller.
prose they
Tim,
use.
Tim Keller's whole shtick was being able to quote from literature.
Right. And I'm like, I can't get through a book.
Right.
But I will just demolish nonfiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I will just, I can't.
Can you listen to it?
While I do what? While I do something? Well, if I walk.
Yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
like to walk. Walking
Yeah.
is your
I
jam.
couldn't sit in my house and listen to a book. No.
No. I mean, I'd
Way
fall
too,
asleep.
way too ADHD.
Right. Squirrel. Oh, hey, yeah.
Yeah.
I could add a room here. Huh.
Yep.
Why did I think of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't know you didn't read them either.
Yeah, I mean, I went through a season when I was younger where I was reading a lot, like Steinbeck, stuff like that. East of Eden, great novel. And then I think academia kind of broke me. And so...
I did notice that when I first met you, you were kind of a little closer to college.
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm so sick of reading.
Yeah. 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 I mean, because we met when I was still at Blackhawk originally, you know. And
No, but
so-
I mean when we reunited at the gym.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You were
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of just
yeah.
post like a.
Yeah. Well, I just finished my master's.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you were just like,
Yeah. You were like, what are you reading? I'm like, nothing.
I'm not for the first
Not
time.
reading anything. Yeah. And so I vacillate between theology, apologetics, evangelism, and then systems leadership.
Who's your favorite modern day apologist?
Modern. You know who I've been really enjoying would be, in terms of like a popular apologetics, is Greg Koukl. Yeah.
I know that name. How do I know him?
I
I don't know him, but I've seen his name.
Yeah, I think everybody should go through his stuff. It's very good. So
Is it like classical apologetics? Is it?
it's really like a hybrid between how to combine apologetics with evangelism. Yeah, and how to be winsome with the gospel narrative.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, between his two books. So
Yeah. So did you read his book or you just watch his stuff or what?
I read both of his books. Yeah, yeah. I might have a chance to meet him because I found out that a guy I'm coaching is friends with him, and he's looking at bringing him in to do a seminar with him. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome.
but yeah, that's
You know
probably-
me. I love apologetics. So.
right. Well, it's a big part of your testimony.
It is. It's how I came kind of serious about the faith.
Right, came back to it. Yeah, and for me, it was Probe's apologetics conference where I got serious about the faith.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I made a faith decision in June, didn't know what to do with it, and then in August attended Probe's apologetics conference, and it was like
What's it called?
Probes.
Probes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Probes ministry. Yeah, light bulbs everywhere going on.
Okay.
So-
Is there a big name in that or not? No, anyone I recognize or no?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, yeah. So what was really interesting was one of the guys who presented there ended up being my Book of Hebrews professor at Moody.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
Life comes full circle.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so guilty pleasure movie, Dumb and Dumber, Star Wars, Indiana Jones. Wasn't following the case, but you've been deep diving into anti-Semitism.
That and presuppositional apologetics because I'm trying to finish my dissertation application.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So I've been reading a lot of that,
Yeah.
watching a lot of that, a lot of debates.
Christmas time,
Yeah.
Advent.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
As a church?
Church and as a family.
So the church, I read a book years ago, speaking of reading books, by Fleming Rutledge
Okay.
called Advent.
His name was Fleming.
Her name.
Her name.
Yep.
Her parents did not love her.
So, right, Flem.
I mean,
What's up, Flem?
gosh.
No, she
about-
wrote a book called The Crucifixion. It was one of the best books in the gospel I've ever read in my life.
Okay.
Very thick book, probably one of the biggest books I've ever finished,
Yeah.
and blew me away.
Okay.
She's a Reformed Episcopalian. She's too left for me, I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, she's Episcopalian. I mean,
Yeah, basically that means we're not sure what we are. We're a little bit of everything. Yeah, so
not a strong identity with the Episcopalians.
no,
anymore.
it's really odd. But anyway, this book was, it won Book of the Year, I think, on Christianity Today. Like this book was huge back then, and it blew me away. She goes through the gospel and everything the crucifixion means, from the actual meaning of justice, which is rectification in the Greek. All of what that means goes back to Anselm, and anyway, it's amazing what she
Okay.
does with the gospel.
Yeah.
Well, she came up with a book called Advent and the history of Advent.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's a book full of sermons. And the sermons, because the Advent is the waiting period for Christ to come, right?
Right.
The in-between time.
Yeah.
So we have the first Advent waiting on Christ when Israel's waiting on the Messiah to come. And then you have our Advent time as we wait for his return.
Yeah.
So she says that the church in America has kind of come up with this faith, hope, love,
Right.
the candles, right? But she talks about historically how it was a time to kind of sit and ponder or teach on the reality of darkness that's still in our world.
Yeah.
So she really painted this beautiful picture of contrasting light and dark.
Right. Because people don't realize that Advent used to be more like Lent, and it was longer.
Yeah,
That it was 2 months long, not
yeah. And then
Or
Christmas was like a month long.
right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we don't do that right either,
Right.
because we've implemented some of this, but not that. But yeah, so this contrast between light and dark, I just agree. And I was like, this is beautiful, because one of the things as a pastor that I've always seen is people are going to suffer.
Right.
They're going to experience hardship.
Yeah.
And do they know what they need to know scripturally in those times? Because I feel like I grew up, no offense, Dad, if you're listening, but
He's in his office. Terry will understand. She'll watch this.
but the Christmas season was always light, joy, happy, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, reality is a lot of people are really sad during Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, they think about the family they don't have anymore, going through terrible times, they've lost family members, whatever.
Right.
And it's like, can I create some kind of beautiful contrast between dark and light?
Yeah. Which is what, I mean, that's one of the key themes in the Gospel of John, right?
Yeah.
Is light and darkness.
Yeah. So that's what we do as a church. We decorate everything. There's lights are off in the sanctuary. It's dark. It's purple stage. The sermons, my first one I open up with is always suffering, the reality of suffering. Then I go through John the Baptist, preparing the way in the first Advent, and what that looks like. So message I preached last week, but it's that's the theme. As a family, I don't know that our rhythms change a whole lot.
Sure.
To be honest with you, there's such deep historical traditions in my family of what we do in the holiday season. It hasn't went that deep that it's changed those.
Yeah. Those. So what's kind of that look like for you guys?
As a family?
Yeah.
Are you talking about like family in what regard?
All of the above.
I mean, man, we are a holiday family. We just always have been. So we're always doing special dinners and Christmas, big family Christmas Eve, big family Christmas.
You guys just did a Christmas party for the church.
Church Christmas party. Yeah, being a ministry family, man, it is literally a month long of celebrations, events and ministry.
So I only saw pictures on Facebook, but it seemed like a little bit of a different vibe than if another church celebrating Christmas. Because it seemed like it was a whole church celebrating Christmas party, where a lot of churches, they just have like church staff parties or they have like church leadership elder parties. But this seemed like it was broader than that. So tell me about that.
Yep. So we decided that maybe 2 years ago now, the elders decided that we were going to do a couple parties a year that were evangelistic in method. And it was going to literally be like, we want people to recognize that Christians are not boring, lame people in a corner, that we actually have a really good time without getting drunk at the bars.
Right.
That we celebrate Jesus and are joyful. And so it's a time that honestly, it's just about that. It's community, it's loving one another. We have them dance out on the dance floor and they're having a great time, and it's always a blast.
Where'd you guys hold that at?
It's over there in Bettendorf, that event center on Tanglefoot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know where you're at.
Yeah, it's like the church and then the event center. Yeah, I forget what it's called.
Yeah, that's great. And would you encourage other pastors to do stuff like that? I mean, it seems very unique for a church.
I would. You know what's interesting, you bring that up, is in my evangelism class a couple semesters ago, we talked about a big thing in the original church. You probably remember what it was called. They had a meal. They called it some kind of feast, love feast. Obviously it was in a different language, but it was a love feast. And it was their main tool of evangelism, was bringing people into
Agape feast?
Yes.
Yeah.
There it is. Very common in the early church. That was their predominant method of evangelism.
Right.
And I was like, why are we not doing this today? If you're going to win anyone to the Lord, why wouldn't it be like, hey, don't just jump into a church service.
Right.
Come meet people.
Right.
Come have conversation.
Right.
Come see our community.
Yeah. And that's really for like Messianic believers. They have Erev Shabbat dinners. And so it's basically opening their home on Friday night.
Yeah.
And they break bread and light the candles and have a meal together. And so that's how they start the Sabbath, right?
Yeah.
But it becomes a way of I have several friends who use it as great evangelism opportunities, because for other Jewish families to say, come over for Erev Shabbat dinner, it's like, oh yeah, of course.
Yep.
And so it's just kind of built into the rhythm, and then and the whole Erev Shabbat dinner, the experience, is designed around taking what happened in the temple and putting it at your table, right? And so you bless the Lord for the bread, right? And so what was in the temple, you have the showbread, right?
Yep.
You have the lighting of the candles, and so you can bless the Messiah for being the light of the world. So you light the candles because of the candelabra, the golden lampstand in the temple. and then you have the cup, and so then you know bless the Lord for the fruit of the vine, and so
That's cool.
yeah.
You know what's funny about this
And
party though?
so you're essentially also having communion or the Lord's
Yeah,
Supper
at the same time.
at Erev Shabbat. Yeah,
cool.
right. So, anyways, so
No, what's funny about this is it's controversial every year.
why? What's
I think I've lost members. I have. I've lost members 2 years in a row because of this party.
okay?
Yep.
So it's the anti-evangelism party.
You know what's funny is I'm not losing like new believers.
Okay,
I'm losing people that have been Christians for a long time.
Can you speak to what's causing people to leave over the
Yeah,
party?
absolutely. So the first year I lost a couple because we had Santa Claus show up, which I did not plan. Someone showed up in a Santa suit.
Do you know why?
And
Do you know why?
what?
Do you know why?
Why?
Because you can't spell Satan without Santa.
Oh gosh. Dude, it's unreal. Being a pastor is one of the most fascinating things. I mean, people will make tier 1 issues, tier 12 to where they are leaving their church community after years. And I'm like, I mean, someone showed up in a Santa suit. I did not plan this.
Yeah. People left.
People were like, this is anti-Christian.
Okay.
So that was one of the reasons. The second reason is that there was dancing.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, okay. That was year 1.
Yeah.
Now this last year,
What kind of dancing?
wholesome, joking around, jumping up and down, doing this, dancing.
Not like.
No, not bumping and
Middle school
grinding in a
dance?
church.
Yeah.
No, absolutely
Okay.
not. Absolutely not.
Okay, good. So not a club scene.
No, right.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, that was,
Was it the same person offended over both, or was there?
that was the 2 reasons they gave.
Oh, so I mean they're just fundamentalists.
Yep.
Okay.
And then this year, which this one's a little bit more understandable.
Yeah.
But I'm very settled and convicted on my position. So are the elders. So I'm not worried about it. But we do allow alcohol at the party.
Do you provide the alcohol?
No.
Okay.
There's a bar there.
Okay.
And obviously that's with no one's allowed to get drunk.
Right.
We tell people to have 2 drinks.
Yeah.
That's it.
2 drink minimum. I'm just kidding. Sorry, I used to work for a comedy club,
Right.
and that's 2 drink maximum.
Maximum. And man, this for 2 years has been an absolute battle in our church.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not going to cave to cultural pressure. And when I say cultural pressure of they were raised in some kind of denomination or church where alcohol was looked at as the most sinful thing you could possibly ever do.
Sure, yeah.
So therefore, and I'm like, I'm letting the scriptures dictate what's sin and what's not sin.
Right.
And mind you, I run an addiction ministry.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that
Yeah.
factor into it.
Yep.
Yeah, if that.
Right. So what we do there is basically our guys that are in the program that deal with alcohol can't come to the party.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, when you sign up for a program, it doesn't promise you can come to every single church event we ever have. That's not
Right.
There's
Yeah.
a difference between the program and I care about people that deal with substance abuse. But what I'm not willing to do is cause their addiction.
Right.
I'm not willing to label that a sin for everybody.
Sure. Right. And it doesn't. I think this is the mistake some people make is that then they make it where everything has to cater to them. Right.
And that's been
And-
one of the struggles in our church with Covenant House.
Yes.
Is the whole church gets oriented around
Right.
12 guys. And I'm like, guys, there's 250 other people.
Right.
I can't do that.
Yes. And I think it's good for people to experience that.
Experience what?
That not everything will be catered to them, right? And
Yeah.
I think everyone in a church should experience that in multiple facets.
Yeah. How do you feel about alcohol?
I feel fine. Yeah.
I mean, would you be confident defending it scripturally?
Oh yeah, that's easy. Yeah. That's like a foregone conclusion.
But what happens when a lady comes to you and says, my husband's an alcoholic, how could you possibly do this to me?
And I would ask what I did to her. And I know I would.
Yeah.
What did I do to you?
You allowed
Right.
the church to have alcohol at the party,
Right.
and my husband's an alcoholic, and so therefore,
Right.
how do you respond to that?
Well, I just asked if they go to a restaurant that serves alcohol.
These are the conversations that I've been in.
Oh no, I've had all these conversations.
right,
Yeah,
for months, and I'm like,
sorry.
here's the other thing I have a hard time theologically. I think this is
Yeah.
an important topic because it goes into a lot of other things.
Right.
I feel like you idolize something when you're so scared of it that you're like, I can't even touch it, even though we know the scriptures talk about it.
Yeah, and this is where, addiction's an interesting topic, and you've been going into that world, and I've arguably been addicted to things. I've lived with, legit addicts,
Yeah.
alcoholics, stuff like that. And I think that within the church setting is that Christ has to become this focal point of everything.
Yep.
And so if Christ is not the focal point, then anything can become a point of worship. And that's idolatry, right? So for me, my personal testimony, because I had a father who drank when I was a kid and who was abusive, and then my mother's boyfriend was a full-blown alcoholic through high school and college. And I mean, like, started at 5 a.m. with vodka and water and didn't stop till he went to bed.
Wow.
Like, drank a fifth of vodka every day.
Right.
Just sitting at the table, smoking Marlboros and listening to Dwyer and Michaels. I mean, that's his whole existence, to the point where, like, he started having seizures because his brain was shrinking from his spine.
Oh no, it's pretty common. I mean, in addiction with alcohol.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've lived with it. I've been around it. So I never drank before I came to faith. Like, smoked marijuana, did that a lot, starting at a real young age. And so for coming to Christ for me was letting go of that. But then once I became 21, I felt the freedom because I was controlled by the Holy Spirit, where I could have alcohol without being controlled by it. But what I knew from my family history, just from observing them prior to coming to Christ, is that if I had alcohol, I would be controlled by it.
So what would you say? I love this.
So my testimony is very different than most people's testimony, because most people's testimony is like, I was a raging alcoholic, I came to faith, stopped drinking, got dry. And I'm like, great, that's great.
Yep.
So you shouldn't drink. Don't drink.
Right.
And if you can't be around people who are drinking, don't be around people who are drinking.
Right.
But don't expect
that person,
other people's convictions to be your convictions.
And that's what I've had a hard time getting through to people.
Right.
The Bible says, don't, if you cause another man to stumble. Okay, so then they can't come.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell other people, right?
But to cause someone to stumble, what the Bible is implying is that there's intentionality to tempt them to sin.
Right.
Where this is not the end goal of what you're doing.
Yep.
You're not, if you took a 6-pack and went over to the Covenant House and said, let's sit down for Bible study, and said, I'm going to drink this while we study the Bible, and none of you are, then I'd go, bro, you're a psycho.
Yeah.
Like, you need to go repent.
Yeah.
So I think that's different.
Yep. And oddly enough, dude, this topic has become, I don't want to say passionate. I'm not like, but it's a little bit of a culture I'm trying to build.
Well, you want to be well thought, you want to be theological, you want to be biblically consistent, and you're trying to create a biblical culture.
Yep.
And to understand where there's permission, where there's freedom. Yep. And where there's clear, this is no.
Yeah.
Right?
So one thing on that we've been trying to implement, we did one a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Is at our Men of Valors, which are probably 10 a year on Sunday nights, once a month. We're trying to do like beers and psalms.
Yeah.
Where literally, dude, you come, you grill out, you smoke meat.
Yeah.
Guys have a beer, and we sing some more masculine psalms together, hymns together.
Yeah, like Mighty Fortress.
Dude, that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is such a cool thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a masculine culture. I think it's evangelistic, which is really what I'm after. Getting the world to see, man, Christians are cool. Like, they're doing something. They're not like mamby-pamby little, you know what I mean?
Well, men need a reason to sit around and do this. Like, you and I do it pretty naturally to sit around and talk like this, but for most men, they need something else that's happening for conversation to occur and for them not to be on their phones and not to need a game on or something like that. And there's a whole network of groups called the Holy Smokes. There's chapters throughout the United States, which are just Christian Bible studies with cigars.
What is it for men? Like, you do something like that, you get twice the amount of people show up.
Oh yeah,
isn't that interesting?
and I just think for men, they need something to help promote the social aspect of it.
Right.
And so, like, I have a friend. Once a year he has a group of guys he joins, and it's a Holy Smokes club. And he says, and he's only able to make it once a year. These guys meet more regularly than that. And he says there's not another group of Christian men he's around that are more honest, more transparent, more prayerful, more willing to confess their sin in a public space than that group of guys. And this is the craziest thing, is that you'd think, because this is his own testimony, you would think that since I only come once a year, by me inserting myself into that, or by being invited to that so rarely, that it would kind of squelch the vulnerability. And he says, not at all.
Dude,
it's
listen,
like there's always an open seat.
I'm in a church network of, I don't know how many thousands of pastors. In my own network, though, our localer one, the U.S. is 50, 60 pastors. I don't know any of them that don't have a bourbon when we all meet.
Yeah.
I don't know any of them. Like, I've smoked cigars with most of these guys.
Yeah.
These are some of the most mature, spiritual, prayerful men I have in my life.
Right.
But then I come into my church and I've got people in my congregation that are like, how could you dare? And I'm like, there's a disconnect. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And I do think that, there's plenty of pastors I know who drink and smoke, and they don't take the gospel very seriously.
Sure. Oh, you'll find them.
And so I think that the important thing is that you go to Romans 14, and whatever does not proceed from faith, then it's impossible to please God. And I think that's where the conscience is so important, is that if in Christ, the Holy Spirit indwelt, your conscience surrendered to the Scriptures, allows you to enjoy bourbon without getting drunk, then enjoy it to the glory of God.
Yep.
If your conscience does not allow you to enjoy it because of the effect that it has on you, or the representation it has in your culture,
or if it bothers you because your dad's an alcoholic, don't do it.
Then stay away from it, because your conscience is convicting you to stay away from it.
Amen.
And the Bible,
and maybe for a reason, maybe
exactly
right,
yeah. And so I think this is probably something we don't teach on often enough or clearly enough. Is the conscience? Yeah,
I agree.
And I think this is, and maybe I've said this before, but emotions are like a smoke detector, and your conscience is like a carbon monoxide detector. And so your emotions, you should pay attention to them, but they may not be telling you exactly what's going on, right? So if a smoke detector goes off, it could be because you have something spilled in your oven. It may not mean that your house is on fire, right? So you got to assess what's going on when the emotions are triggered. But for your conscience, when that is pricked, then it's like the carbon monoxide. You got to open windows, you got to clear the house because something is imminently wrong. Yeah. And so I think that's why I think Paul is so concerned about people's conscience not being seared by sin, because they'll die from their sin as a result. Yeah. So.
Yep. Well, that's good.
So a conscience that's surrendered to the Scriptures, that's in step with the Holy Spirit.
Right.
That's what we want. So.
Amen.
Whether you drink or not, smoke or not, that's what you want.
Amen. So what does your family do during Advent?
So we are pretty simple in terms of we get together on Christmas Eve with one of our families, and then Christmas Day with our other family. And then in terms of being itinerant, that varies from year to year what I'm doing.
What church you're preaching at, or
what church I'm preaching at. If I'm preaching at all, it depends on where Christmas lands. And so sometimes.
What does your family do with that? Do they have one church they go to, or do they go with you, or what?
Yeah, so they always participate at Edgewood.
They're okay. That's kind of your home base a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really the family's home base. The original intention was for my home base. And so before COVID, they had kids ministry on Saturday night. And then during COVID, they stopped that. And so that put my family on to Sunday morning, where before we'd do church and everything on Saturday night. And then they'd stay home on Sunday, and then I'd go preach somewhere on Sunday. Yeah. So, and then during the church plant, I would go preach in the morning somewhere, and then we would have church at the church plant in the afternoon, and so that would be church for them. And then when the church plant closed, then it's kind of been this process of them solidifying at Edgewood, and then for me preaching. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But it's not fair to them to drag them around. The boys, when they want, and it's a good setting, and if they want to, then they'll come with me. And so Blaze has done that a fair bit, but some places, like I'm not only preaching, but I'm also helping with leadership stuff, and so I might be there for a meeting, and so it could be a 4 or 5 hour morning. Yeah. And so they're usually like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Or if I'm, I cover a 3-hour radius. So if I'm driving 2.5 hours, they may not want to, be in the car for that long.
Yep.
Just for hearing Dad preach.
Yep.
But my middle one, he's attended 2 services with me now just recently.
Oh, that's fun.
I think you'll appreciate this. So the first one's over at Grace. Grace is about 120 people or so, large room. And towards the end of the service, he's sitting up front. And I noticed towards the end of the service that as I'm talking with my hands, he starts mimicking me. And he's doing a pretty good job of it, right? Yeah. But it's just towards the tail end, and so I'm able to finish, and it's fine. And it's like high back chairs, and he's little, so nobody even really sees what's going on, right? So he comes with me last week, and smaller church, like less than 30 people, smaller room, much smaller room. And he's sitting there, and he starts doing it like 10 minutes into the sermon, which is
way too early.
Way too early, man.
Yeah, bro, I got a long way to go.
And it's like the pew's got a low back, and so everybody in the room can see that he's got his hands going. Like, and I'm talking with my hands, and I see him, and then I look around, and I'm seeing that everyone's looking at him doing his thing, and they're not paying attention to what I'm doing. And so finally, like, I start like dropping my hands down, and he starts dropping his hand down, and so I'm trying to like not talk with my hands, which is pretty challenging while preaching. And then so I'm doing like stronger head motions now to compensate for the fact that I don't have my hands. And so then he drops his hands down, and now he's using stronger head motions. And so
how did you not laugh?
Oh, bro, self-control, man. 20 minutes of constant self-control, evaluating the situation, and trying to keep them engaged while processing what I'm saying. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's got to be cool though to bring your kid to.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Good. It gives. I'm a fundraiser, right? So I meet. That's ultimately my job.
Yep.
And so I'm a stewardship representative, and for a kid to try to explain to their friends what I do, they're like, I have no idea what you do, Dad.
Yeah.
Because they know I have meetings. They know I'm in lots and lots of meetings.
Yep.
But other than that, what did you do today? Oh, I went and had coffee with somebody. Oh, I went and had lunch with somebody.
I know. My son asked me that too. Dad, what'd you do today? I'm like, why do you ask me that? It's kind of boring to talk about.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, I don't know how to spice this up for you. Yeah. So my oldest, he likes it when I'm in basketball season because then we can talk about the game or practice and stuff like that. And so that's interesting to him. But
that's when I wish I was like a framer or something. I could tell my son I built a house today.
That's right. Yeah. Like, look what I did. Yeah. Instead, you're like,
I exposited Matthew 23 today, son.
Look at this beautiful passage. So Hanukkah. You're gonna do it? I mean, it's Erev Hanukkah starts on Christmas Eve.
Bro, I'm not as much into the Jewish stuff as you are.
You want to have a Hanukkah party?
I'm a little ignorant to it. I understand that it's like 12 days.
8 days. Yep.
I'm close.
Yeah, you're in the ballpark.
8 days.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's Judaism, right? I mean, it's Jewish heritage.
It's the Bible. Yeah.
Okay.
Prophesized in Daniel. Jesus went to the temple.
So do you think there's a place to celebrate Hanukkah within Christianity?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Jesus went to the temple on Hanukkah. Yeah. The Feast of Dedication.
What are we doing? What are Christians doing?
Dude, there was a kid at a Christian school who wasn't allowed to bring Hanukkah cookies. That's how ignorant Christians are.
Yeah, I'll be honest, dude. I mean, I thought this was a Jewish holiday.
Right. Prophesied in Daniel, Jesus celebrated at the temple.
And what is Hanukkah? It's celebrating what, though?
It's celebrating the miracle of the rededication of the temple. Because of the...
So how... All right, so maybe that's why. Because, I mean, Christmas is supposed to be about the incarnation.
Yeah, I think Christmas and Hanukkah are two different holidays.
Okay, so they're different. They don't overlap.
No. Yeah. Just because they happen... Yeah.
It leads up to Christmas?
Well, because the Jewish calendar is lunar, then these holidays move, right? So you're going to have a rough frame of time, so like sometimes at this point in December, Hanukkah's already started. Hanukkah's later this year, and so it syncs up with Christmas. But
I can see why Christians then would not want to take any emphasis off of Christ.
Right, but I actually think that it doesn't at all. I think it...
Yeah, but you're also more educated than most on Jewish tradition.
That's probably true, yeah.
Anyways,
if you want to spin the dreidel with me next time.
Yeah, you got to let me know.
Yeah, we'll do that.
You don't invite me to near enough stuff.
Wow. Shots fired. Yeah. I think you might think I'm doing more stuff than I am doing. Yeah. So I spend a lot
We
of
didn't went on a trip or anything. We need to go on a trip again.
Yeah.
Find a conference to go to together. Let's go to an apologetics conference.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go to that one guy. Does he have conferences?
Which guy is the one guy?
Crook.
Oh, Greg Kukul?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, we got to do Israel. We were texting about this. I think, I think the war is going to be an interesting spot. Did you see Israel?
Yeah, is now a good time?
It will be a good time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it will be a good
Because it's starting to settle down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Gaza's pretty well under control.
Okay.
There is a ceasefire with Lebanon. And then I'm not sure you saw what happened with Syria.
I don't know, but what you're saying right now, I'm not getting more comfort on going over there.
Why not?
Saying a place is under control, that's not good enough for me to be like, hey, let's go. It's under control.
That's not good enough for you?
No. I like the way you're...
I don't know, man. It just
Risk.
doesn't seem very... I mean, it's fine,
Yeah. We'll see.
I'll keep you safe, bro.
Keep me posted.
I'll keep you safe.
When were we talking about?
Well, we were trying to find a time, and so I was trying to gauge
Yeah.
but we'll figure that out offline.
Yeah.
So, cool, bro.
Okay.
Hey, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to you, bro. Appreciate the podcast. It was
Yeah.
good to be back, everybody.
Yeah, thanks
Thanks
guys.
for listening. Like, share, subscribe, comment. What else?
Buy the T-shirt when we make one.
Yeah, we need a t-shirt.
Dude, the logo, man, is ready for a T-shirt.
That's your job.
Is that my job?
Yeah, because I have to do everything.
All right,
That's your job.
hey, send me the logo. I'll get the T-shirt made up.
Done.
Because I already found out what type of T-shirt brand you like. You sent me that, so
Yes.
I'm ready to go.
Let's do it. Peace out, peeps.